Welcome to the Next Level's Chaos to Clarity podcast. Chaos ends here. Clarity begins now. Every week, real stories, bold strategies, and actionable insights help you level up fast. Let's dive in.
Hey friends, welcome to another episode of Chaos to Clarity. I am Ben Kirk and I've got Becca Eldridge here with us. We make up part of the team at Next Level Solutions. And today we're going to be talking to you about you don't have a lead problem, you have a people problem. And so when we bring that into context of what we're going to be talking about today, we would just want to call out the lie that most contractors say they need more leads, but if I doubled your leads tomorrow, would your team be able to handle it? And so some of the points that we'll talk about today as we're having our continued conversation on making contractors better and getting rid of the chaos in their lives, we're going to talk about missed appointments, follow-up, job closing, and customers being frustrated because leads aren't the bottleneck. Usually people are. And Becca, welcome today. Glad to have you on the show again. And
Thank you so much.
yeah. So tell us a little bit about what it looks like in real life.
Absolutely. I think the biggest situation we can find a lot of clients or contractors and anybody in any business, especially starting out in the startup environment, will run into is that I need more leads. If I get more clients that come in, I'll start generating more and more revenue, which is going to cause my business to just go through the roof, which is absolutely in theory and on paper, totally. You make more money, you become more successful. But the biggest challenge that runs into that people I don't feel like plan for is how the more clients you have, the less capacity you have and the more desperate you become to bring in anybody that you possibly can to alleviate that burden of now I'm so important. All these clients need me and they really, really want what I can provide them with, but I just don't have the time now that they all need. So you end up with this big kind of tug of war of I need people in and I need them in now, but I also want a ton of leads right now because that's how I'm going to pay for the people I need to hire.
Mm-hmm. And I've kind of been there before working in the roofing and construction industry myself. I've found that some owners are like, well, they're just a good old boy or just a good old gal, and let's just hire them. And while they may be the best person in the world, they're usually not the best fit to the culture that is in that company. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is it's quite the statement, but it's in hiring people, you want to try to hire very slow. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, I've got to get this up and running. I got to ramp this up. I got to scale this fast. But hiring slow gives you the opportunity to learn that person that you're trying to not just grab off the street, but just trying to learn how that person is and see if they fit into your culture. Because a lot of people, they hire, but they don't hire for culture. And what they find in after a little bit of time has gone by, they'll find maybe they aren't the right fit. So it's one of those things, we've talked about it before. You want to hire slow and fire fast. So it's like, hey, this is not going to work. Let's get you out. Let's move you to something else, or you're just not a good fit for our company and move on. Because that, you're setting standards, but if they're not meeting those standards, you're creating issues in the culture.
Oh, absolutely. And there's an even bigger fundamental problem there, which is the need to really make sure your team is fully trained and ramped up to understand the culture they're going to be in, the clients they're going to face, and what they're expected to deliver. So it's great to be like a go. We need to hit the ground running, and just to start servicing our clients. And in our industry, the assumption would be they've done these roofs before, they've done this flooring before, so all I need to do is hire them and they'll figure it out. But it's your business's version of that. And as we've worked with hundreds of clients over the years, at thousands probably at this point, there's not been typically any two companies that are identical. Everybody has a little bit different of a culture, expectation, and process. And when you don't bring in somebody with an understanding of, I'm going to develop you to understand how we're going to do it today, then you're going to end up in the same problem where they're going to be coming in and they're going to be going out really quickly because they themselves feel like they were misled into what they were going to be walking into. I've been doing roofs for 20 years and I come to work at this new roofing company and I just can't figure this out because it's a different scenario, different tools, different environment, different processes.
Yep. Right. But there's a lot of times too where you struggle, that you feel like you're hiring the right people, but you're struggling to keep the right people. So there's
Mhm.
retention struggles within the company because, let's just face it, good people are going to leave quietly because they don't want to stir up anything, in the company, but they're not happy and they have no growth path or there's no vision from the leadership or from the owner. And it's like a scripture in the Bible where there's no vision, the people perish, right? So most companies don't have a hiring problem. They have a leadership consistency problem, because leadership is not consistency in their systems or their workflows or their process. And that brings us to our next point. There's a cost to that. And let's talk about what it's really doing to them as far as the cost for their company.
Oh, absolutely. So there's so many between the leads that you can potentially lose. So going back to our initial kind of idea, I need more leads, I need more leads, I need more leads for more revenue. The amount of leads that you actually lose because of the talent you bring in that are maybe not the right leaders or they're not the right individuals to deliver to your clients, you could end up costing yourself a lot more in the long run. Where there's a ton of
Mhm.
clients. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with a client, I'm sure you have too, where we go
Yep.
in and we find out I'm losing hundreds of leads. I don't understand what the problem is. It's this system. And it's like, no, it's not the system.
Mm.
It's your team. And if you don't have a rigorous process or accountability system in place, leaders who lead by example and motivate a specific mindset and understanding about this is how you're going to be the most successful, you're going to lose more than just the talent. You're going to lose all of your clients too. And that sounds
Yeah.
dramatic, but it compounds faster than you think. And it's so hard
Mhm.
to gain back that trust. It's not impossible, but when you try to gain back your trust with your clients and with your team internally too, it's kind of like a leaky dam where you're like, I can fix this, but it's going to take intention and time.
Because you're not losing money because of the market. You're losing and leaking money through your people because it's causing lost revenue. So that's the cost. Wasted marketing dollars. Maybe you're not funneling that money to the proper marketing sequence. Owner burnout. How many people do we talk to on an occasion that we're like, just man, I'm burnt out. I need to figure out something,
Mhm.
to get to the proverbial, and I mean it as a pun, next level. How do I
Mhm.
get to the next level if even though I'm burnt out? Or because I've hired the wrong people and because I've had to like come back and look at where we currently are, how do I repair my damaged reputation because I've allowed the wrong people to work for me? The owner could be as good as gold, but the people that he hires and centers around him, it can cause problems in the future. And so when you look at the root issue of what we deal with from day to day, let's kind of like, let's flip the mirror. And this is where we can talk about how you don't rise to your goals, you fall to your systems. Won't you break that down
Mhm.
for us a minute?
Definitely. So when you don't have it clear, like a defined profile for who you're looking for. So I know on paper, I want this type of person who has these specific skills and can work these specific hours. You've got a very clear idea of a rough outline of the type of person you want to bring in, but you're missing a fundamental piece there, which is what
Mhm.
qualities as a person am I looking for? So it's great that they've got all the skills on paper, but are they going to show up in a meaningful way? And am I actually setting the right expectation for the people to come in too, for what they could expect from me? So it's a defined hiring profile for who you want to bring in and what you genuinely are looking for. I think a lot of times that our team leadership that we work with, whether they're owners or people who are put in a position of hiring, they just know I need someone who knows how to do roofs or knows how to do whatever. Insert the trade here, but they're not thinking further than that to say, I want someone who is determined, who's a go getter, who understands that this is a hustle or a grind or that we're going to be go, go, go. Or even bigger than that, when you're starting and ramping a business, I've worked with several clients who they started their company 3 years ago, and now they're just like, oh my gosh, I've got 5 locations now. We're going nonstop. I just don't know
Yeah.
where I can actually, how am I supposed to push to this and scale to this? You're not setting that expectation clear between hiring for yourself and hiring for those people to know this is going to go big and fast really, really quickly.
Hmm.
Onboarding systems too. I have worked in so many startup environments that I can tell you a big make or break kind of call out I've always seen is not having an onboarding system in place. How are you going to
Yeah.
train your crew on the processes, the systems, the expectations, everything from how they're going to get paid to how they're going to
Yep.
actually communicate and document things? So it can compound from there to where, great, maybe you did get the right client to come in, the right hiring staff to come in. Cool. gotten hired the great person. But now I don't have a good onboarding process, so I could lose that great
Yeah,
person now because they're going to come into the chaos they didn't necessarily sign up for, to say, I don't know how to effectively do my job. So they were the right talent who didn't get the opportunity to know how to do things the right way for your
for
business.
sure, for sure. And you and I, we come from the environment of SaaS companies. We worked together at Job Nimbus, and one of the
Mhm.
ways that we that was a startup when we really first got with Job Nimbus, and we saw how defining hiring people, the onboarding systems, we saw that and how it was constantly changing because it was being organic to where they were in the moment. And just because you have systems in place, it doesn't mean they're concrete. There were a
Mhm.
lot of times that we were changing while we used to say, we're building the plane and the plane is on fire and we're in the air. And so we were always adapting to change, positive change, to get us to the next direction. And a lot of the way that we did that was building the framework around it. And that's what we do here at Next Level. We build the framework around to where we help you with, if you don't have core values and you don't have a mission statement and you don't have everything that you can present to someone in your company, that's what we help you do. We help you from the ground up. We even help you write the KPIs, the job descriptions, hiring processes. We do all of that. And so the framework is important because it's a framework that fixes things. And so some of the ways that we do, we're going to go through and we're going to give you an acronym today. It's talking about hiring the right people. And I'm going to start you off with this right people framework, and we're just going to kind of hit it off, pass it back and forth between me and Becca. But the first one is, if we want to define right, RIGHT, we're going to say R is for role clarity. And what we mean by that is that every position has defined outcomes, has clear expectations. And because if it's vague, it's going to fail. But that role clarity can also be organic to where you guys are, or what's the term people use, holistic to what your vision and your goals are. But you're finding and defining the role clarity for which leads us into I. What's next for I, Becca?
I would be intentional hiring. So you just really need to stop hiring out of panic. I know it seems like a big panic button right now. I need someone now, today. I don't care what they know how to do. I'll teach them everything. But you genuinely need to stop for a minute, breathe, and think about the bench that you want to build before you need it. So you should be really,
Mhm.
really building out who you need to bring in for the moment when you're going to need to hire them. So that way you're not scrambling at the last minute, try to figure out what is the right person for me to bring in.
Right.
That's everything from making sure we're interviewing based off of the person's character, their coachability, and their competency. So, and that's in an intentional order too. I want to
Yeah.
know, what type of person am I bringing into my business? I want to know, can they take feedback? Can they be developed? Can they learn and grow? Because your business is going to change and grow over time. So should your people. They should be able to be agile
Mhm.
and moldable. And competency. That seems like one that you would think should be number one, but genuinely, at the end of the day, anybody could be taught how to do something. It's hard to teach character. It's hard to teach someone to be coachable. That takes a lot of time to make sure
Yeah.
someone is being open-minded in there. So that's why those are so important in a very specific order.
Well, and I like the intentional hiring because it goes back to what I tried to say earlier. Hopefully, I can get it out this time. You hire slow and you fire fast. That's it.
Mhm.
Hire slow, fire fast, which leads us to G. So we have right role clarity. So R, I, intentional hiring, and then G is growth path. So you want to show the people that are going to work for you or that are working for you, you have to have the vision. And with the vision, you're showing them a glimpse of the future of what can be. I've seen, I've had, as far as growth plan, I'll never forget. We were doing an event. We were at Job Nimbus. We were doing an event in Cabo. So it was like this big yearly event that we all came together, and we did, like, all of our customers came down that could, and it was really great. We did sessions, and one of the sessions that we did was like knowing your people and knowing your numbers. And during the class when I was teaching, this owner stood up and he was like, basically had tears in his eyes, and he was talking about how he was, being intentional with hiring, but he was not allowing himself to move out of the way and allow for growth to happen. He was stifling the growth because he felt like he had to do everything. And
Mhm.
so he stood up and he's like, I want you guys to listen to what he's saying. He's like, for like 3 years, I was doing this and I was stuck at like $1.5–2 million in revenue, and he owned a pretty successful roofing company. And he said, but it wasn't until I stepped out of the way, provided a proper growth plan, and gave proper direction to the team. And I took my hands off. So I let go to let grow. He's like, this man is saying what I live, because now after a year and a half of doing this, they're upwards of 4.5, 5, and probably at this point, it's a few years back, they're probably 10+ million a year in revenue. And so
Yeah.
having a proper growth plan and the understanding that you're building good team members to build good growth, that's important too, because people don't stay for jobs, they stay for direction.
Mhm.
And that leads us into H. What's the next one?
H would be high accountability, which I think goes hand in hand with growth path. It goes hand in hand with all of it. But when you have a growth path, you have to also make sure you have high accountability in place. So that means
Mm-hmm.
weekly scorecards, measurable KPIs, and not guessing at things. I think a lot of the times when we've worked in the SaaS industry and we help clients set up systems, a big thing that everybody's looking for is how can I see how people are performing and how do I make sure that they're doing what they need to do? So it's everything from understanding what those things should be. Don't just throw something at the wall and assume it's going to tell you a story. You really, really want to get into the details of the data of what could I genuinely measure. It's time
Right.
to value at the end of the day. Most of the time, it's time to value. How quickly can I get a client to convert, but also how quickly can I deliver what they wanted me to do for them?
Yep.
And so that accountability makes a big difference for us to say, here is a smart goal for you. I want you to make sure that you are ramped in a certain period of time. I want to make sure you're talking to clients in a very specific way at certain
Yep.
frequencies. And I can document and really see that actually happening somewhere. And then when they're
Mm-hmm.
not, which can happen even if you're learning, you have a very good coachable culture where you can develop people and give them the tools to get better, not starting from a framework of punishment, but from learning. Have a learner's mindset and develop them. And then if you notice that there is a block there that's not actually happening and it's just not working out, great. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't a good fit, but at least we took the time to educate our people, develop our people, and give them the tools to be successful and a really clear way that they can be held accountable to what they should be delivering. But I see
Yep.
that there's a two side to that too. You also need high accountability for your clients. So a lot of
Yeah.
times people, they just stop at their team and say, all I can manage and control is in here, but you can influence so
Right.
much with your clients. And they
Yeah.
actually 9 times out of 10 appreciate it. They want the accountability. They want the reminders. They want to know that they committed to something and you're committed to making sure they also follow through with it.
Yep. Yep. I like it. I like that. Accountability is important. And then the last one is T for team culture. So when we talk about team culture, um, most of our partners and software partners that we have, most like us at Next Level, I think we hire for culture. They hire for culture too, and I think it's important because you want the people that you're hiring to be a part of the culture, but be adaptable to the culture too. Because what you tolerate in your business becomes culture, and you may tolerate bad things, which is bad culture. And so you have to really look at yourself from a telescopic view and say, well, where is my company when it comes to culture? Are there good things that are in my company? Are there bad things? And culture isn't just words, it's enforced behavior. And I'll give you a little bit of a story. We did an on-site for a company years ago. And when we were talking to the owners, they were saying, we have an issue with this one employee. And they were talking about just how he was always late, or he had a bad attitude, and just young guy. And he just was a problem at times. But we were just like, okay, so what's keeping you from, getting rid of him? Because he's actually just toxicity to your culture. And they were like, well, he makes so much in revenue a month and he's bringing us a lot of business, so we can't afford to let him go. And I'm just like, I was thinking, well, if that's the mindset, then you're never really going to attack the problem. And that is hiring the right people for culture. And I think it's very important, because when you hire the wrong people, you're going to pay for it. And
Oh,
if you
yeah.
build good structure, you're going to see results.
Yeah, either way, you're going to pay for it, whether it's in a good way or in a consequential way. You're going to have
Yep.
what you get, like pour in what you're going to pour out at the end of the day.
Hmm.
And I love that this is something that's such a big. It's a strong. I would beat the drum nonstop about culture, but I also
Right.
think there's a good important asterisk I put on culture, where it's such a buzzword today. It's right up there with
Mhm.
like thought leader. Anybody can be a
Yeah.
thought leader. Everybody knows, oh, I want to be a thought leader. But what does that mean? Culture, same thing. You can go so
Right.
far in one direction with culture where you want to take the cult out of culture. I'm not trying to
Right.
get a hive mind of people and belief systems. I'm trying to get people who
Right.
all have to the word that you said, which is, I feel like, a stronger, when I see culture, a bigger font next to it would be mindset, 100%,
Right.
where you need to be believing in the direction that we're going, why we're doing what
Yep.
we're doing, why it's important. And at the end of the day, you don't have to walk around feeling like that my job and the place that I work at is my identity or the most important thing necessarily in the world.
Right.
It is that what I am doing to help people is important. And this is
Yep.
why. And remembering your purpose and your actions, not who you're trying to impress or make proud or what kind of name you're trying to make for yourself necessarily. It's that I'm doing this to make this meaningful impact in the world.
Exactly. And so, which brings us to a challenge that I want to ask you a couple of questions today. Maybe ask yourself who on your team is unclear on expectations. What can that do, Becca, with when it comes to workflow and the work environment?
Oh, this is such a good question. When you don't have clear expectations on what your team is supposed to do, you have everything from people who will just not take action because they don't really understand what they're actually supposed to be being delivered, to a completely different outcome than you would have expected because you weren't more specific with them. And when it comes to the lack of action, which I feel like happens way more often, it's a feeling. I don't have the statistics on it, but I would not be surprised to find that I'm accurate in that. When you don't have a clear expectation, a lot of times people are more afraid to point out that they don't have clarity there. They don't want to ask a question. They don't want to ask you to verify because it's uncomfortable to say, I don't understand. And so when there's a lack of understanding, you have a lack of action that inevitably follows. The other side of it is, with a lack of clear expectations, is you don't have a clear way to consistently measure that they are showing up in a consistent way, standardized for your clients, whether it's in presentation, its process, or even how they show up to work and how they treat each other. You have to be clear on your expectations.
Yep. Yep. 100%. And, are you, another question that I could ask you that are listening today, where are you tolerating mediocrity in your business?
That's such a good question too. What I think is important about mediocrity is that you're actually having to ask yourself, what does that mean? Am I allowing a bunch of just average Joes in my business? It's not that.
Mhm.
It's more of, I'm allowing a low caliber level of delivery and service. When I ask them to show up in a specific way, if I don't set a clear standard, a high standard, people are going to default to what their high standard might be or what they know they can get away with. Because at the end of the day, we all work for a reason, but not everybody shows up to work
Yep.
because they're trying to perform at a certain level. They're just trying to do their job. And that's great. But that's where you come in. Your responsibility is to very clearly define what a high standard is and make sure people
Yep.
understand how they should perform there. And when you hire people, you're hiring for people who perform. You're bringing in people who
Mhm.
understand what the standard is and they strive for it. One of my favorite examples I'd give is, I listen to my husband a ton when it comes to his job, and he's in sales and operations. And so I've gotten to sit front row at a lot of his motivational conversations he'll have. And he always pushes for, we're showing up and trying to be great. Why would we settle for anything less than great? And I think that if you show up and you beat a drum and have a mantra with your team that sets a standard for
Mhm.
whatever it is that you want to deliver, you can develop people into where they'll always show up with greatness. And the minute you see that someone is just deciding not to, and especially consistently deciding not to, you need to come in with accountability and eliminate that mediocrity to make way for greatness.
Yep. Yep. And, as we kind of close out today, I just want to kind of speak to the heart of those owners that are listening to us, whether male, female, whatever, roofing company, contractors, home exteriors, whatever you're doing, any business that you have, can ring loud to you. Chaos in your business isn't random. It usually revolves around people with clarity, and clarity is your responsibility as a leader. And I'll say that again. Chaos in your business isn't random. It's usually people without clarity, and clarity is your responsibility as a leader. So if what we have said today kind of hits a nerve where you are, good, because that means you're paying attention. And our goal here isn't perfection. I think a lot of people in life And I can speak for myself. I grew up feeling like I had to be perfect in some ways and Becca can attest to this. Sometimes we work so hard that we want it to be perfect. But the
Mhm.
goal isn't perfection, it's ownership. And we don't fix people problems overnight. And I think that's what people think. Well, don't go out and just fire everybody today. Don't
Yeah.
do that. Evaluate where you are, evaluate who you're with. But you can fix everything in a moment when you decide to lead differently. And I think that that's where it comes into having ownership as an owner.
100%. And I love that the end of that sentence is your responsibility as a leader. The problem isn't you trying to fix everybody in your team necessarily half the time. It starts with you. Everything starts with leadership. You're the trickle down of everything. Everything falls downhill at the end of the day. So if you're someone who is driven, motivated, inspiring, you're showing up with clear goals, expectations, you're hiring the right
Mm-hmm.
people, everything naturally will follow with that, with you having consistency in how you do
Yep.
that. That's why I
Yep.
love books like Atomic Habits. When you read something that helps you instill with the routines, the discipline, and the way to achieve your goals without having everybody go based off of and running off of their feelings, you're going to get out of your own way and really help your team get to the next level, pun intended, in their ability to show up in a meaningful way.
Yeah, 100%. And I think one of the things that we can kind of, as we end this, is just as an owner, raise your standards. Raise your
Mm-hmm.
standards of, if you need better Google reviews and you're not getting them, maybe because of the people that are working for you and maybe they're not doing their job or meeting expectations, raise your standards right where you are today. Because when the right people are in the right seats, everything changes. You want less chaos? Hire the right people. You want more clarity? Do the right thing, raise your standards, and build a business that actually works. Because I've seen a lot of times where there's contractors that'll come in and do different things and they don't raise the standards enough. And then they see that there's just pitfalls in their business. Like we want to treat at Next Level. I usually tell everybody, and Becca can vouch for this, that some of the meetings that she's been on, we try to treat you like family. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that if a lot of contractors would put themselves in a place to say, I wouldn't do this for my own family, then why would you do it for a customer? If
Mm-hmm.
you would cheat somebody. There's a book and a story, and I'll tell you this real quick and we'll close. I know I sound like a pastor, as I am, but anyway, there was a contractor. This guy tells a story about a contractor. He gave the guy $500,000, and there was something along with the story of how the contractor and his wife, they were going through a hard time. But he said, "Hey, I'm giving you $500,000 to build this house. If you can build it and stay on your budget, great. Whatever you need to do, it's going to give you this budget, and you're going to build the house." So the contractor started building the house. And through time, he was cutting corners because he was wanting to save a lot of that money.
Mm-hmm.
What's left over, you're going to get to keep from building the house, basically. So $500,000 building the house. Well, story goes, there was corners cut everywhere, right? Just so he could get more money.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, the guy comes up and says, "Man, the house looks beautiful," but not knowing all of the hidden problems, right? Because of the wall, you couldn't see the hidden problems. Over time, they would show themselves. But at the end of it, it was the guy that gave the money of the $500,000 to build the house ended up giving the contractor. He needed to know this. Ended up giving the contractor the house. Gave him the
Oh,
keys to the house. Yeah. And I don't know if that's factual or if that's fiction, but the story was, don't cut corners, raise your standards,
you'll have to
and
live
then
in
you get
them.
to,
You'll have to live
yeah,
in the problem you created.
exactly. You get the keys, you get to live in the problem you created. So that's
Mm-hmm.
not who we are. That's not what we want to do. But if this episode has rang true to you, we'd love to hear from you guys. Like, subscribe, reach out to us. We'd love to, sit down and talk with you and do a 30-minute consult call and just learn more about your business and learn more about how we can help you at Next Level get rid of the chaos and give you more clarity.
Absolutely. Scan that QR code down here at the bottom. You can also go to nextlevel.com and go and check our site and see our services we offer. And let us know if you have a topic you'd like us to cover. We'd be happy to cover it with you and make sure that we are showing up in the meaningful way for you and we're always hitting the bar. Thank you again for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to Next Level's Chaos to Clarity podcast. Curious to learn more about what we do? Check out our website at www.nxtlvlsolutionsinc.com. If this episode hit home, give us a like, hit subscribe, and share it with someone who would benefit from the information shared. We'll catch you next time for more Chaos to Clarity insights.